Well, good evening. Happy December. Welcome to Aging Well. Can y'all believe we are at the end of 2022? I don't know about you, but for me, this year has just flown by. I think it's the hope that we're getting back to some form of normal. It may be a new normal, not like we've ever had before, but at least we're getting to see each other. So I'm so grateful for that. So very, very grateful. And I'm grateful for our team, Tom Roth with our CTSI, Courtney Hayes with our School of Medicine, and of course, Audrey Belfaro with our School of Medicine Memory Center. So thank you for that team, but mostly thank you for you. Thank you for being here on Tuesday. Again, we can't imagine what else we'd be doing on the second Tuesday of every month without you. But, I hope everyone is able to enjoy the holidays in a peaceful, slow manner. I feel like everything gets so hectic around this time of year that things just kind of go by in more of a blur than usual. So my wish for all my friends, for my family, is to take a breath and just enjoy the moment. Wherever we are, just enjoy that moment. We have a fun lineup, an amazing lineup. We even have a television star with us tonight, but we want to go ahead and get started. And so our first cooking demonstration, y'all have noticed you did not receive the recipe in advance. Because there were some questions with it, some issues with it. And hey, I know this crowd likes to cook. And so I want to make sure it's absolutely correct before I send it to you. So just relax and watch this cooking demo. It's Nikki Farrington and her sous chef. Let me make sure I get his name correct. Gray Jessup. They are from the restaurant 6th and Vine here in Winston-Salem, making a fabulous butternut squash soup with a very fancy chutney garnish on top. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the chefs and hope you enjoy.
Thanks, Deb. It's great to be part of Aging Well. What we're going to make for you today is a roasted squash bisque with a topping of a walnut and golden raisin gremolata. So we're going to start with our butternut squash here, and what we've done is we've cubed this into about 1-inch cubes. We've salted and we're about to pepper it. We've tossed it with a little bit of olive oil, and we're going to put it in the oven at 350 degrees. We're using white pepper in this soup because black pepper would kind of stand out, where white pepper sort of doesn't make little tiny black flecks in the soup, and so that looks nicer. Also, the flavor on black pepper is usually a little bit stronger and a little bit more floral. My spice guy tells me that of all the peppers, the white pepper is the most floral because it comes from there's a lot more, flesh on white pepper before it's dried than there is on black pepper. So this is my sous Gray. He's going to put this in the oven for us while we prepare the rest of this. We're going to start by stewing our raisins and our walnuts in this pot with red wine. Any red wine you use or you have at home will do. You probably want something sweeter than dry, but if all you have is dry, it will be just fine. We're not going to chop up the raisins at all, putting these in whole. And what these are going to do is they're going to collect the liquid from the wine. It'll flavor it and it'll color it beautifully. We're going to add a little bit of brown sugar and also of honey. Brown sugar has molasses in it, which adds a little bit of a sour note to the sweetness. And then you get a little bit more depth in brown sugar than you do in white sugar. Because this is ultimately a savory dish, you don't want to just have sweet though. So we are going to add a little bit of salt and pepper to this gremolata as well. One tip that our nice Gray did not do is that you can spray a nonstick cooking spray into your measuring cup, and that helps your sticky liquids come out a little bit cleaner. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. We're going to turn that on relatively high because what you want to do is get the liquid boiling. And the boiling is important because you want to reduce this by some. So you come in your pan and you're just barely covering your solids. You don't want them to be in very much liquid because then to reduce it to almost a jammy consistency. It would take you entirely too long. And that will take a minute to get boiling. In the meantime, let's talk about some safety with the acorn squash. So acorn squash, or butternut squash, that's what this is a very hard squash. And so it can be a little bit tricky to be able to pare this, which means peel, and to cube it. What you want to do, the first cut you want to take off of a squash or something like this, is one cut on its fattest surface. And that's because if you take that off, it will sit cleanly on your board without rocking. And that's important because that rocking, when you're coming at it with a razor sharp knife, you don't want to injure your fingers or arm. So that you take one cut off and then you use a peeler to peel it away from you. And again, that it's very hard vegetable, so that does take some force. So you need to make sure that your hands are below the surface of the peeler so that you don't injure your fingers there either. Then when you get it open, you scoop out the seeds, and they're not poisonous or harmful in any way, but they are difficult to digest, so you don't want to leave those in there. And you discard those or plant them or roast them with salt and pepper and butter. So what Gray's doing is he's going to mince this shallot, and the shallot's going to be the first thing that we put in our soup for an aromatic. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some chicken broth. And, you know, this is one of those sort of cheater things that you could make the chicken broth or chicken stock from scratch with vegetable scraps, celery, carrots, and onions, and chicken bones and little bits. Or a lot of people like to use chicken wings for stock, or you can buy a nice high-quality chicken base product like this one is available in your grocery store. There are also boxed and canned low-sodium chicken broth. If you wanted to make this recipe vegetarian or vegan, you could use vegetable broth. You could use white wine also. And this is going to make the soup part of our soup. So a lot of solids are going to go into the pot when we begin to construct the soup, and this is going to make that movable before we saute or before we blend it. And the ratios for the chicken stock are on the package. Usually it's about 1 tablespoon of stock to a quart. The boxed stocks do not need to be reduced or blended or diluted anyway. They're fine just as they are. So the key to mincing a shallot without taking off a finger is holding your thumb behind your fingers. And you can always look back at your mince and make sure that they're all uniform and cut through. Okay. So it looks like our gremolata mixture is coming to a boil. We're going to add our walnuts now, and these are chopped walnuts that you'll find in the grocery store. You could get whole walnuts and chop them yourself. The cost difference is not considerable on either one. Nuts these days are pretty expensive anyway. Now, this is going to take some of the crunch out of the nut, but what it does add is a texture that is a little more meaty. And again, that's important if you're trying to make this vegetarian or vegan. The nuts and the berries that go in the gremolata, those can vary by your personal preferences. So if you like pecans better than walnuts, that's a good choice. You can very easily find dried cranberries and dried cherries at the grocery store as well. There's also regular red raisins. So, you know, you can vary. There are even dried blueberries available now. You can vary the ingredients on the gremolata based on your preferences, allergies, dietary restrictions. As well, you can vary the salt that we've added in the course of this, if that is a concern to you. Some commercially available broth products are very high sodium, so that's why we got low sodium. And there's actually no sodium chicken and vegetable broths available too at this time. So we're going to make, this is 2 quarts of water, so we're going to put 2 tablespoons of the chicken base in it. And because we're going to taste as we go, and we can increase or decrease the amount of salt by adding certain things like a little more honey. And again, that's a good way to vary things. If sugar is a concern in your diet, you can add more or add less sweetness, and you would want to also temper the amount of salt that you add there too. If you add less sweet, you probably add less salt. But taste as you go. In the gremolata, I'm going to add a little bit of the seasonings that we're going to add into the soup so that it marries well. So we got a little coriander going in here. And a little bit of nutmeg. Nutmeg adds a warmth that you can't always recognize, but you definitely notice if it's not there. So now that we've got this at a good boil, we're going to leave it to steep here on our table. And then we're going to start constructing our soup. So this is what our mixture looks like right now. And you can see that they're about equal parts solids and liquids. And we will put that back on if it doesn't absorb to further reduce it. For right now, that's going to allow the raisins to plump up a bit and for the walnuts to soften. Okay. So now we're going to start making our soup. We're going to start with a couple tablespoons of butter. Melting in the pot. Again, if you're trying to make this vegan, any of the vegan alternatives to butter are perfectly acceptable as well. The next thing you add to your pot is going to be your hardest vegetable, which in this case is carrots. A couple handfuls of carrots. And those are a fine dice, which is a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. And then we have finely diced onion. Equal parts of those two things. And here's where we're going to add our shallot as well. Shallot is in the same family as onions, but it gives off a little bit more of a garlicky flavor than the onions do. The onions have more sugar in them than the shallot, so they're a little bit sweeter. And then we're going to also Gray's about to crush and mince us some garlic to add in as well. Garlic is the last thing you add to a dish in the saute stage, because garlic, when it is burnt, has an acrid, bitter taste. And you want some of the other vegetables to have released their moisture so that garlic gets more steamed than sauteed. And part of cooking is the seasoning. And salt both tastes good and it helps break down the cell walls. So that moves our saute along a little bit quicker. And again, the white pepper. Yeah. So we're going to let this cook a little and soften. And like I said, as we covered before, the butternut squash is in the oven and it's getting cooked there as well. So once we bring all these things together, we'll taste our mixture to make sure that we have enough salt and enough pepper before we start to puree it. But again, that's why we taste our recipes all along the way, so that we can account for a stronger or weaker flavor earlier and adjust our recipe and the ingredients we add after that. So those are starting to get softened. And so in the pot, I will lean this over so that you can see, there is some liquid. And this is the difference between sweating and sauteing. So we sweated these, which means they give off some of their liquid. And that way when we add the freshly minced garlic, again, it can steam in the pot, not necessarily brown. So we'll add that. And this does seem like a lot of garlic. And it kind of is. But garlic's good for you, so you should eat a lot of that. So this is a pretty quick recipe that comes together too, in that you have a couple of things happening at the same time. This is very passively idly stewing. Our butternut squash is in the oven, and then our herbs and seasonings are here on the stove. As soon as the squash gets added, I'll add the chicken broth. We're going to finish this soup today with cream cheese. You could finish it with heavy cream, light whipping cream, milk, or a vegan cream product like coconut cream or soy milk. The reason that we're using the cream cheese today is because we like the way it gives it a little bit of a cheesy tang, and it does help thicken it, which again, that's a personal preference issue. You can make it as thick or as thin as you'd like. Okay, so while we're waiting on our squash to finish roasting, I'm going to remove the aromatics from the burner. And of course, if we were at our house, we'd have another burner. So, but we're going to put our walnuts and our raisins back on, and that's so this can come down into a more syrupy consistency. So Gray's gotten our butternut squash out of the oven. We're going to add this to our pot. Well, and you'll notice that some of it has gotten caramelized, and that makes things extra delicious. That's called the Maillard principle. When the sugars in a something, steak or even vegetable, caramelize, and that's what we read as umami. And so you want to get, that's why we put it in the oven first too, is so that you get some of that. If we'd steamed all of this together, you wouldn't necessarily have the same level of flavor and depth that you do when you caramelize some of the sugars and like you steam the garlic, for instance, not let that get burnt. Now you'll find at this point that everything's so soft that it's kind of starting to come to like, you're not stirring it so much as just mushing it together. And then you add some of your chicken stock or broth or vegetable broth, and you're trying to, again, just cover the solids in the pot. What we're doing with the what we're doing with the gremolata is that we're reducing the liquid by at least a half so that it becomes more of a syrupy, sticky consistency. And that will concentrate the flavors, but it'll also look nicer on the soup. Okay, so now that we've added the butternut squash, we're gonna buzz up our soup. Okay, so this is called an immersion blender. These are commercially available relatively cheaply. Usually you could find one around $20. This one's a little bit more expensive than that because it has some changeable attachments, but you can find your basic immersion blender in the $20 range. Yeah, you can get those at Walmart, you can get it at Target, you can get it on Amazon, most of your major retailers. And you just move that around in your pot. One thing we're going to add now is our cream cheese, and we're going to do that while it's hot so that it can sort of melt. And again, that's going to add our creamy consistency to the soup. And a little bit of salt and a little bit of cheese. And as you're doing this, you might find that you need a little more broth or liquid, but it's easier to add it later than it is to take it away. So that's why you want to be conservative with any addition to a dish, be it salt, seasoning, or liquid. And we've got a little more pureeing to do, but I'll show you that this is where we are right now. It's not quite smooth, but it's certainly not chunky anymore. One good thing about this recipe as well is that it's gluten-free. And again, I've discussed different ways you can make that vegetarian or vegan. So when you're entertaining, say at the holidays, this is a good dish to have because many different dietary restrictions can be accommodated with this kind of dish. Okay, now that our soup is hot and finished, this is the consistency that we have. Okay, so now we're going to serve our soup. And this soup is good for an entree, so you could have a big bowl of soup like this, or it's good for an appetizer, so you could serve a more conservative portion as a course to your dinner. So now we're going to top this with our gremolata. Gray? Spooner. Yeah. So again, you can see that our raisins have plumped up here. We'll put that in the center. So here we have our finished product. Shall we? Delicious.
Good job, chef.
Excellent work, chef.
It was fascinating to watch them cook. And I think how lucky they are to have a sous chef. I don't know how many of us have a sous chef. I guess I'm kind of my husband's sous chef, maybe, if he lets me in the kitchen. But anyway, we are. Oh, sorry. We're going to get you the correct recipe out. And so that you can go back and watch this and create your own beautiful version of this soup. Now, how many of y'all thought that I was absolutely crazy when I suggested going to the Senior Gardens in December for a tour? Well, as it turns out, it's an amazing place to go through the month of December. It's called their Holiday Blooms Spectacular, and it is totally spectacular. So I am going to invite Adrienne Rothling to give us a tour, and I think you're going to enjoy it as much as I did filming it.
Thank you, Deb. It's so good to be back here with Aging Well at the Paul J. Senior Botanical Garden. This is an amazing Christmas display. We have actually taken recycled bottles, turned them into works of art or flowers. So about 4 years ago, I saw a video of another public garden making flowers out of plastic bottles. They didn't really have characteristics that reminded me of a real flower. So I wanted to do the same, but I wanted them to reflect something that's known for this region. And we started with tulips. So I actually made a tulip out of plastic bottles. I had 2 other volunteers make tulips out of plastic bottles. We got our heads together. I looked at theirs and I'm like, wow, yours is so much better. And they went with it. So 4 years ago, we started with 400 tulips made out of 16-ounce plastic bottles, all cut, shaped, spray painted. We actually opened the catalog for Brent and Becky's catalogs and looked at all the photos and started spray painting and painting, even painting the tips to make them look fringed. And we made 400 the first year. That was in 2018. 2022, we have 7,000 flowers, 7,200 to be exact. Flowers, all sorts of flowers, sunflowers, poinsettias, dogwoods, magnolias. It's amazing to go from 400 to 7,200 in 4 short years. So we'd love to have you. You will want to go visit our website. It will be open select evenings throughout the month of December, leading up till New Year's Eve, and it's $5 for adults. 17 and under are free. So we'd love to show you what we have on display. Come on. So let's go take a tour, shall we? Come on. In addition to the flowers we made out of plastic bottles, we also wanted to create a light show experience. So what you do is when you come in, you actually walk the garden. It makes a loop. But we also have a couple of features. We have the giant green tree you see behind me. It's got a star at the top. And then we have a performance stage where it's a great place to stop, take a photo, take a selfie, do whatever you want to do, and then continue on through the pathway. You know, none of this would be possible without the thousands of hours the volunteers have put in over the last 4 years. Believe it or not, we've actually calculated about 1,000 hours that the volunteers have actually come to work just on Christmas alone. And they're the masterminds behind some of these new flowers. They're the ones that came up with the lotus, the magnolia. You're going to see more, but they also came up with the angel's trumpets, the lilies. There's so much that they did, and we couldn't have this without them. If you are interested in a volunteer, call us, give us a shout, and we'd be happy to talk you through it. So one of our new flowers this year is the blue and pink clematis. So we have the blue one down here. So this is a 2-liter bottle that's been cut in strips. It's got thin petals of strips. And then this is a 16-ounce that's been cut, almost fringed, to make the center of that clematis. And clematis is a vine, so we actually started it and it grows up the shrub over next to its neighboring shrub, and there's about 75 clematis flowers you see here on these light strands. So this is one of those selfie stops. You can actually come to the stage. Your parents can go in the front, take your photo. But what's great about this performance stage is we have a lot of flowers here. Above me are angel's trumpets. Angel trumpets have big trumpet-like flowers that bloom in summer. They're coming off the wisteria vine. Okay, only a garden could do something like that. And then also over here behind me, the red and the burgundy you see on the trees are poppies. So we have a multitude of things going on down here. This is an area in full sun, so we actually have more tulips down here, but they are the foreground to the towering flowers you see behind me, which are foxgloves. Foxgloves are a flower on a stalk, long tubular flowers. So these are all made out of mouthpieces, and foxgloves are pink, so you got the pink and the dark pink side by side. So in addition to tulips, a lot of people think, well, you know, if you're going to have a garden of tulips, you're going to have a garden of daffodils to go with them. So that's exactly what we did. We have 75 daffodils down here, all made from the bottom of a 2-liter bottle and then a 1-liter mouthpiece inside the center of it. So we get a lot of people coming in here. Here we are, it's November, December. Typically temperatures are in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And a lot of people think that we're crazy because we are planting actual tulip or daffodil flowers. And their first impression is, gosh, these people really don't know what they're doing. Don't they realize these flowers are gonna die? But then their second impression is, whoa, there's a light inside that flower. I need to come back at 5:30 and see these things when it's dark. So we have a really good misconception in the beginning, all surrounded by this wonderful beauty at night. This is our tunnel. A lot of people like to exhibit a tunnel for their Christmas display, and so it's exactly what we did. The flowers you see above me, okay, you might look at these and be like, they're the same shape and size as a tulip, and they are, but they're spray painted red and white to look like another vine, another summer flowering vine called the cardinal flower. There is actually a white cardinal flower and a red cardinal flower. So we put these along the top of the tunnel, and then they are accented with these wonderful snowflakes, which is perfect on temperatures when it's 60 degrees. Makes you think of winter, absolutely. And we love the candy cane effect as well. We're standing in front of one of my favorite areas of the garden. One of my favorite flowers is sunflowers. So here we are in a bed of sunflowers. So we've got the rays, and then there's the sunflowers in the background, the towering sunflowers in the background. The flowers are made from 2-liter bottles. Probably 3 or 4 2-liter bottles went into the making of these sunflowers. And they're on 4-foot stalks. And as you can see, there's the rays with the orange and white and yellow lights all around it. So we're looking at our hillside boulder garden. What's funny is in the summer months, this garden is full of white flowering Formosa lilies, big giant white trumpet-like flowers covering the whole hillside. So we wanted to mimic that for our Christmas display. So we made lilies out of 16-ounce bottles. So another new flower we have this year is the dogwood, and this is actually a dogwood tree behind me. It's one called Little Princess, and so we had the masterminds, the volunteers, go and make dogwoods. They used side pieces of a milk jug, so they're able to get 4 or 5 flowers from one milk jug. And then we went ahead and saved the bottle tops, spray painted them yellow. We did a crisscross so that we can insert the flower through, and then it stays, so that we can insert the light bulb through, and then it stays once we puncture it through the crisscross. And then we have lit dogwoods here in the middle of the winter season. This is actually a 4-year-old display. We have these ginkgo trees lining the side of our sidewalk. There's 46. We're actually training them to grow together. We're hooping the branches together. And what we did this winter is we've been putting green Christmas lights to mimic a vine. And then the flowers you see, well, your interpretation is your imagination. So do you see grapes or do you see wisterias? I kind of see both. But we wanted it purple and white and pink so that we can reminisce and so that we can see this wonderful vining experience. So we're actually back on our patio terrace, and we are seeing a close-up of the poinsettias. They are also a 2-liter bottle, actually 3 2-liter bottles. They got foliage and the flowers, and then there's a light bulb inserted in the center of it. And what's great is that they're on towers, and we've got 6 or 7 towers all throughout. So the patio terrace has almost 175 poinsettias on full display. And of course, this is a great vantage point from seeing the rest of the garden further down. Just look at the scale of that giant green tree down in the middle. You can see the wonderful stage with the angels' trumpets and just the whole scope of the entire display. Thank you so very much. We are so glad to have you guys join us. We hope to see you in person really soon. Come see us. Remember to go visit the website prior to see what nights are lit, and we hope you enjoy this wonderful, spectacular holiday bloom.
It was such a fun event going over there. And the best part is because it's outside, it's about as safe an activity as we all can enjoy right now. And I think that's what we're all still wanting to do, to be social, out and about again, but staying as safe as possible. Now, when we first started tonight's show, I promised that we had a celebrity on tonight. So I thought it would be fun. Let's start with the clip from the Today Show, and then we'll go from there.
November is National Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Month. Just to put this in perspective, more than 6 million Americans 65 and older are living with the disease.
By 2050, that number is projected to reach nearly 13 million.
So this morning, we're actually going to spend some time talking about what we can do to protect our brain health.
Today's special anchor Maria Shriver and Dr. Laura Baker, a neuroscientist at Wake Forest University School of Medicine and lead co-principal investigator of the U.S. Pointer Study, the largest clinical trial for the prevention of Alzheimer's in the world. Join us now. Good to see you.
Good
guys.
morning.
Thanks for being here. Okay, so Maria, where are we right now at the point of, if it's possible, to prevent Alzheimer's?
Well, the idea that we're even talking about prevention and Alzheimer's in the same breath is super exciting. When I got involved in this 20 years ago, nobody spoke about prevention. Now we know a lot about a brain-healthy lifestyle, as Dr. Baker will talk to you about what she's actually studying and what she's finding out. But we're talking about prevention in terms of talking about sleep, talking about exercise, talking about managing stress, talking about what you eat, how you socially connect, how you keep your brain growing and learning and evolving. These parts of the discussion weren't even in the discussion 5-10 years ago.
And going off of that point, mentioning some of the specifics, how much exercise are we talking? What sort of nutrition? I mean, Alzheimer's does tend to run in my family, so I know my mom is very concerned. What can you tell her to do right now?
Well, the most important thing is everybody should be concerned, not just people for whom it's in their family. Anybody with a brain should be heeding this message, right? Because it's everybody's job to try to keep their brain as healthy as possible. So Dr. Baker has just done a big study about the role of exercise, and I think which is really exciting, that what you learned is that it's exercise. It doesn't have to be HIIT exercise. It doesn't have to be highly intensive. It can just be get up and move, because people have a sedentary lifestyle. Managing stress, really important.
Dr. Baker, I'm really interested because, as Dylan said, for those of us who, even if you don't have Alzheimer's, you know someone. I'm 44, more parents of my friends' parents than I can count. So what does the science or research say behind what we can do to try to at least early detect or prevent? Like, what can we be doing?
These are really good questions. So we just finished a study not too long ago, trying to answer that question, especially as it relates to lifestyle, a brain-healthy lifestyle. And in our study, we included about 300 older adults with mild cognitive impairment. Now, mild cognitive impairment, you can think of this as the gray zone between cognitively normal, what we're all experiencing as we get older, and dementia. So these people don't have dementia, have mild cognitive impairment, but in a one-year time, they all have significant decline in their memory and thinking. So these are the people that we really want to target because they're at high risk.
Yes.
So in our study, they assigned to either a low intensity or a high intensity exercise group. The high intensity is more aerobic, the low intensity is more stretching balance. And they were exercising at a YMCA under the supervision of a YMCA trainer 3 to 4 times a week for a year.
Okay.
What we found is this. Neither group declined over time.
Really?
And this was a shock to us because these people should have declined. So our take home, which is I'm very excited about it because it has much more application. More people can do any kind of exercise. So our take home is any type of regular is a key word, regular supported exercise. These folks can't exercise on their own. They need help. In the way that we all do, but these folks particularly need help for the accountability. But regular supervised exercise for 12 months can protect against decline for these individuals.
Dr. Baker, what has your research shown you so far about actually improving cognition in older adults?
We all want to know that, don't we?
Yes.
We're all waiting on the edge of the chair asking what we can do. So one of our other studies I'm very excited about, too, is we were looking at a daily multivitamin.
That's it.
Really exciting.
Daily multivitamin. For 3 years, it was 2,000 people in our study. We gave them either a multivitamin or a placebo. You can't tell by looking at it. So that's really important for clinical trials, that everything is tested in a clinical trial. So we gave 2,000 people a multivitamin or a placebo for 3 years. The active multivitamin improved cognition in those who received the active multivitamin.
Measurably? I mean, it was
Measurably.
This is
Yes.
super big news.
Yeah.
Super exciting. Both of these things are, because they are things people can do today after the show. They can start taking a vitamin. They can take a walk around the clock. They can prioritize their sleep. They can think about eliminating or at least decreasing sugar in their diet, which plays with brain health. They can figure out ways to be socially connected. That's a big thing. So this is an exciting space. I think so much of the Alzheimer's caregiving discussion goes about what we don't know or we don't have a cure, but we know so much more now about how to empower individuals than we did 2, 3, 4 years ago.
This is really exciting. Maria and Doctor, we got to go, but if they want to find more, people want to find out more about this, where would they go?
Well, they can go to today.com. They can go to the Women's Alzheimer's Movement. We have guides there that you can download, which tell you how to talk to your doctor, what you need to know if you're a caregiver. They can talk to you about getting support for the caregiver before the caregiver is really incapacitated, which happens to millions and millions of people.
That website's right on the screen right now, right beneath Maria, today.com/health.
This is so important.
And Maria, I think it's really important that people, that the families, if you notice that even the slightest change, to talk about it.
Yeah.
Don't wait till it's too late to have
Especially
the
coming up to the
difficult
holidays.
conversations.
Right.
People are going to see each other for the first
Go to the
time.
doctor. Go to the doctor.
Fantastic conversation.
That's great.
So neat.
Thank you
both.
I'm telling you, I've never been so proud to be affiliated with an organization as I am, to work at we have a wonderful new public facing name. So Wake Forest University School of Medicine Memory Center. And so with that, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce my colleague, my boss, Laura Baker. She is the deputy director of our center, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you, Deb. Give me the thumbs up that you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, super. Welcome, everyone. I see we've got 77 people here today. I'm looking through the list and I see some friends of mine from the community and participants in our research study. So I really appreciate everyone coming to hear about healthy lifestyle. And I have to laugh when I see me with Maria Shriver. It was a fun day. It was really fun. It was really fun to be there and to meet all the co-hosts and just be part of that. I've worked with Maria before. She has, as you know and can see, she has a very strong passion for brain health and protection against Alzheimer's disease. So it's always a pleasure to work with Maria. And to get my words in edgewise to the best of my ability. So today, I thought, Deb kind of approached me and said, we're heading to the new year. Hopefully, we're all starting to think about how, it's a fresh start, January. It's a fresh start. And maybe this is a good time to start thinking about what changes we might want to make to honor our bodies. And by honoring our bodies, that means also honoring our minds. And really, that's really what this is all about, is how can we be our best selves by taking care of ourselves. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about that study that I mentioned with Maria, but also some general topics about what can all of us do? What baby steps can we all take now to start supporting and honoring the mind in interest of hopefully protecting us all against cognitive decline and dementia down the road. So I'm going to share my screen for a moment here. And we'll go here. How about that? Okay, let's go. So my topic today, it's all about healthy lifestyle. And I'm going to talk about just a few of those things, but there are many ways to have a healthy lifestyle. The lifestyle is everything that you do. It's your life. It's the way you interact with your environment. It's your decisions you make during the day to honor your body. It is also, but sometimes there's lots of challenges too. Following a healthy lifestyle is not easy for many reasons. And for some of us, it's even more difficult because we have life challenges that we need to honor and be respectful about and try to address as we can. So here we go. So I don't know, if you can always look up, Google the Wall Street Journal. And there was this great issue that came out in 2019 in November. And it was a centerfold. You could open up the middle, and it's the first time in my life I've ever seen a centerfold in the Wall Street Journal focused on prevention of dementia. And what I loved is it listed several components of lifestyle that if we were to modify these, you could actually improve cognitive function and possibly reduce your risk of developing dementia. And so some of these that were talked about in this article have to do with controlling your blood pressure. There's new research showing that is very important and can be beneficial. Exercise, physical exercise, cognitive exercise, and I've got training here because there's a lot of work, a lot of news about doing cognitive training on a computer, and that's not. There's many ways to do cognitive exercise. Watching your diet, and I don't mean losing calories, losing weight. I mean, what's the composition of your diet? Is there color on your plate? Is it a colorful plate? What's your sleep like? Protecting sleep is critical for dementia prevention. And then also, what's the effect, the benefits of the combined of multiple lifestyle factors? We're going to talk about that just for a little bit here. All right, so I don't know if you recognize yourself here. I sure recognize myself here. We've learned a lot in the last 15 years, and it has to do with, what about lifestyle might increase our risk for cognitive decline and dementia. Well, being sedentary, sitting is the new smoking. You may have heard that. And here I am in the blue skeleton position. We do this a lot. We spend so much time sitting, and these days we spend a lot of time sitting and looking at a computer as well. What does your diet look like? What do we, how do we spend our leisure time? How do we stimulate ourselves on a regular basis, both cognitively and socially? These are all different behaviors that we've learned when they are not healthy, can increase your risk. And we know that chronic exposure to these kinds of behaviors can have effects on the body and what we look like in our heart, and under the hood as well, with the heart and the vessels. The blood pressure can go up, the cholesterol levels can rise, and ultimately we're finding that these effects in the long run can have severe effects on brain function. All right, well, what has changed in the last 50, 60 years? So what I'm showing you here is a graph. And the graph is on the bottom there is by year. So I'm showing you back from 1960 all the way to 2010, and we could go further, but this is as far as this graph goes. And then on this axis, on the vertical axis, is how active we used to be. So in 1960, we were much more active in our occupations. We moved around a lot. We had less desk jobs. Over time, we have more and more, as the more and more we become dependent on computers, for instance, the more and more our lives become more and more sedentary. So we sit more and more time in front of the computer, but it has a toll on our bodies, and we're learning on brain. This goes to 2010, but you can all imagine if it went out to 2022, this situation would be even worse. Well, it's not just in our active time that we have changed. It's also in how we spend our leisure time. We sit around a lot more than we did 50 years ago. We find sedentary activities to entertain ourselves. So, when this happens for years and years, and now we're in the 50 to 60 years in our culture, in the United States culture, it can have significant consequences for not only our medical conditions. We have way more cardiovascular disease now than we did in the past. We have more high cholesterol. We have more strokes. So we have a lot more conditions that are due to these kinds of behaviors. And it has consequences, we think, for the brain. So here I'm showing you a picture with exercise as a center focus, and we know from our science that exercise does a great job at reducing stress and improving mood. It can improve the heart function and the vessels. It reduces the bad kind of cholesterol. It reduces the bad kind of cholesterol in your vessels, so the blood flow it works better. It reduces your risk of type 2 diabetes. It reduces your risk of obesity. And with all of these positive effects, we're also learning that these effects are not just constrained to below the neck. Don't know if you've noticed, but the neck does connect the top and the bottom. So if exercise has benefits for the body, it will most certainly affect brain function as well. And so we know in the brain that it promotes new connections between the cells, the brain cells. Regular exercise increases the brain cells' resistance to injury and death. I wonder how many people knew that in the audience. And now we're starting to learn, or new evidence is starting to come out to say regular exercise may actually prevent or slow Alzheimer's disease. All right, so I'm going to tell you about this one study that I made reference to on the Today Show, and this is one that we've just completed. We've reported it in a conference, and so we got some media coverage. The official scientific manuscript that describes the results has not been published yet, so that will be coming soon. But I still want to go ahead and share that with my close colleagues here in Winston-Salem and all of those of you who are not from Winston-Salem but have joined the call. So our name of our study was EXERT. It was a national clinical trial in 296 older adults with mild cognitive impairment. And these are the folks that I referred to on the Today Show in the gray zone. They don't have normal cognition, but they don't have dementia yet. These folks still live independent. They can live on their own. A lot of these people still work. They still drive. They get from point A to point B like all of us, but they have a much more difficult time doing that. They still have memory problems, but they're still can figure out how to adjust for those memory problems, got keeping lists, for example. But these people are struggling. And when you have mild cognitive impairment, your risk of developing dementia, Alzheimer's dementia, is very high. So these are the people that we really wanted to focus on in our study. We wanted to see whether regular exercise for these individuals could protect cognitive function in these people from declining. So here's our study. I like to put pictures like this. Hopefully, a picture's worth 1,000 words. We did some screening at the beginning. We had to find people with mild cognitive impairment. We assigned randomly, like flipping a coin, assigned people to be either in an aerobic or a high intensity group or a low intensity group where they did stretching, balance, and range of motion activities. And for the first 12 months, they were supervised by YMCA trainers all over the United States. We were in 14 cities across the U.S. and we were here in Winston-Salem as well. We worked with the Robin Hood Y and the William G. White and out in Clemens as well. So we're very grateful to the YMCA teams. Our YMCA trainers, they worked with our participants. They exercised. They were with them when they were exercised 4 times a week for about 30 to 40 minutes each time. We got their heart rate up a little higher with the high intensity. We kept the heart rate a little bit lower. I want to remind everybody, these people were, I haven't told you yet, so I can't remind you, but these people going inside, they were all sedentary, meaning they're not regular exercisers. So even this low intensity exercise was a lot more than they were doing at home. So, just to give you an example, the aerobic exercise folks, their heart rate was like for a 70-year-old, we were getting the heart rate up to about 125, maybe 125 beats per minute. So it's exertion, but it's not, it's not too much for that individual. And we didn't do it immediately. That's really important. If you're going to go start an exercise program, it's really important that you do it very, very slowly. Start very, very slowly. When we were starting our sedentary folks on an exercise program, we started working with them for 10 minutes a week at a very low intensity. And the second week, it was 2 10-minute bouts at a very low intensity. And the third week is 3 10-minutes. So you get my point. It's really important to go slowly so that you can actually enjoy it. If you go too much too fast, you're not going to enjoy it. And I think that probably most of us already appreciate that. I haven't mentioned this. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but our primary evaluation was at the 12-month mark. This is when they were supervised. In the last 6 months, all of our participants graduated and they had to exercise unsupervised. And I have to tell you, folks always preferred to be with their trainers. We learned that very quickly. They really did appreciate the attention that their trainers gave them. And I think it's just a success moment for me. And that you can ask older adults who are sedentary, who have mild cognitive impairment, to do something as demanding as this. In our 296 participants over 12 months, we had over 31,000 exercise sessions were completed. And remember, these are people that did nothing. So we went from sedentary to 31,000 completed exercise sessions for 296 people. If we've got nothing else out of the study, I would consider this a success. And I just have to say too, before I move on, we got so many emails and texts just feedback from our participants telling us what a difference this study made in their life. They felt better. They appreciated the attention. They were proud of themselves. They could move. I had one woman said that she was so happy that she was in the stretching balance. She was in the low intensity group. She was so happy that she could finally go out onto the soccer field to watch her grandson's game. And before this study, she felt very uncomfortable doing that. So I think we had a success. And I think for me, it's another testament that exercise, if you do it properly with support and gradually, it can give a return to you. And these people were they're just so grateful to have introduced exercise into their lives. All right, so what did we find? I'm going to keep it short and simple. Here's my picture. Our excerpt participants, we looked at their cognition. We had one score that we used, one global score, which combined lots of different tests. So it combined memory and attention. We had one score. So for the excerpt participants, when we looked at month 0, that's before the exercise, to month 12, we found no change, no difference. And it didn't matter which group you were in, no change. When we went and looked at what did other people with mild cognitive impairment, how did they do on our same cognitive score from over a 12-month period, we saw that they declined. Other people, similar people who were similar to our excerpt adults with mild cognitive impairment, they declined when they were not involved in an intervention like excerpt. Our excerpt participants did not. They should have declined, and they did not. So this is our take-home message that from this study, that an increased amount of any supported, remember they had trainers, and any supported exercise for 120 to 150 minutes per week, that's the amount of time that our participants exercised for 12 months, may slow cognitive decline in sedentary older adults with mild cognitive impairment. Remember, this is exercise. There's no medicine here. So we still, it maybe if we went out longer, we would have seen something, but the 12 months is what it was our observation period. And this is what we found. And I think I just want to say that we did this study during the pandemic. We did this study when the YMCAs were shutting down, the trainers were losing their jobs. We would get messages from our participants saying, oh, I'm worried about my trainer. Did they lose their job? Can I send money for the salary? That's how bonded our participants were to the trainers. We did it during the pandemic. We were calling our participants during the pandemic, and guess what? They were still exercising even when we were all locked down for a little while. We called them every week and they would report exactly what they had done. So the reason this excites me is, a lot of times we're talking about, oh, the pandemic got in the middle of life, it shut us down, and too bad it happened. Too bad it happened, of course, because we lost a lot of wonderful lives of people that we love. And so I don't mean to simplify that at all. I'm just saying in this study, a lot of research was shut down entirely. We use this as an opportunity of real life events. Something terrible like the pandemic happened. Our participants who were sedentary were able to continue exercise because they had the support they needed to learn what to do. And so, yes, we had a pandemic. We still got no decline, but the pandemic to me is just like a real life challenge situation. These people with mild cognitive impairment, even in the absence of a pandemic, will have multiple challenges in their lives every single day. So if we can get exercise to protect against decline in a pandemic, maybe exercise, supported exercise, can also slow decline even without a pandemic, but during the adults with MCI, during their regular challenges they have each week. And if you wanted to find out more about what the media covered, you can just search excerpt or exercise and Alzheimer's, and you might want to just throw my name in there, Baker, and you will see many different news outlets covered it, because I think this is the reason people locked on to this is that we're all looking for something that we can do, and we're looking for hope for how can we slow decline. And there's a lot of issues with some of the medications. It's not accessible to everyone, and it can be expensive. And so if we have a strategy that we can all try at any point in our life, I think that gives us all hope. All right, before I can't leave you though without talking about other lifestyle. And this looks like our diet sometimes, right? And a little bit every now and then is fine. We do eat. I think that's a veggie burger though. I'm convinced it's a veggie burger. And then we eat like this sometimes, and a little bit is okay. It's when we eat like this on a regular basis that our bodies have difficulty processing this food on a day-to-day basis. The similar picture that I showed you for exercise, with diet as a center focus here. We know that diet reduces a healthy diet, kind of what you see here on your left, reduces stress and it can improve mood. It's good for the heart and the vessels, your cholesterol, for type 2 diabetes, obesity. And much like what we saw for exercise, it's been shown to have similar effects in the brain. So I just want to share one finding from a dear friend of mine who is not with us anymore, but she found that she has studied something called the MIND diet. And the MIND diet is rich in dark green leafy vegetables, berries, whole grains, and nuts, and it's low in saturated fats and sugar. And what they found it's down here, it's underlined, that their study, it was just observational. They were just watching people who adhered to a MIND diet, like a diet, versus those who did not. And they found that people who adhered to a MIND diet lowered their risk of Alzheimer's by as much as 53%. And these are people who adhered to the MIND diet rigorously, so on a regular basis, weekly. But I think what's also encouraging is they also found that it reduced risk by 35% in who followed this MIND diet only moderately. Let's just say moderately, a couple days a week, 2-3 days a week. So to me, that provides additional hope that it's not just diet, but there's other lifestyle changes that we can make. Baby steps, start with baby steps that may affect our ability to resist or be resilient against cognitive decline. All right. One more thing I wanted to show you is, what about combining? We started off talking with the Wall Street Journal and all the list of different lifestyle factors that might reduce risk. What if we start combining them? It allows us to increase the dose of the lifestyle medicine. So physical activity plus a healthy diet. Does that give you more than physical activity alone? And it allows us to personalize the lifestyle program to meet the needs of different cultures and physical limitations of individuals and logistical challenges. So some cultures don't allow certain foods in their diet. Some people have physical disabilities and can't do the physical activity. And some people don't feel safe walking outside. So having a combination allows us to meet people where they are and adjust this so that we can accommodate them in the best possible way. So this is a study that I've talked to, I think here once before, but I think it's always worth mentioning. This is a study that was completed in Finland back it was published in the scientific literature about 2014. But in this study, they did a combination study, and they combined nutrition, exercise, cognitive exercise, and they were asked to know their numbers. What's your blood pressure? What's your weight? What's your cholesterol? And they looked at what was the effect on brain health when people did all of these things. And these are some pictures of our Finnish our Finnish friends involved in this particular study. And this is what they found. They found that in about 1,200 people, all about this age, people who were in this multi-domain, multi-lifestyle domain intervention involving those different factors versus regular health advice, this was the control, they had improved cognition, they had fewer chronic illnesses, they had less decline in their day-to-day physical function as well. And so this is with no medications. This is lifestyle. And so this is really caught the world. Many of us, it got our attention, like, oh, wow, you can combine and get really these kinds of benefits in older adults who are at risk for cognitive decline. Maybe we should expand this program. Maybe we should see if it works in other people, not just people who live in Finland. Well, that's what happened. So this finger study, fingers way up here in Finland, it kind of got the attention of many different countries. And we have since all come together into one network that's referred to as Worldwide Fingers. And all of these countries, all of them in blue, the different colors, we're all have committed to test whether lifestyle intervention can protect against cognitive decline in people who are at risk for developing cognitive decline and dementia. Let's just say that we all want to test whether lifestyle can protect against dementia. So right now we've got over this graph is even, this picture is even out of date. We've got 45 different countries all testing whether multi-domain lifestyle interventions can protect against cognitive decline right now. The different colors, this is, yes.
Dr. Baker, we are at the end of our
Oh
time.
my goodness.
I want to allow time for some questions if you're able to stay on a little bit longer.
I can. Deb, can I just go to my take-home slide real quick?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And just remind everyone that you will be receiving copies of these slides in your follow-up information.
All right. I always think I have way more time than I do. So anyway, we're excited about this. We will learn more, and hopefully Deb will let me come back at some point and tell you what we're learning on the global scale. So my take-home messages are, from our work so far, move your body, set goals, and move your body more, sit less. Add color to your plate. The color to your plate is essential for brain health. Stay connected with your community. You're here today, so you are staying connected. Reach out to your family and friends, help one another, learn something new whenever possible. And balance comfort with change. Being comfortable all the time is not the goal. If you want to protect brain health, you've got to balance that with regular challenge. So Deb will send these out to you. You didn't really miss much because I was just going to summarize, but I think this is really our homework for all of us going forward. And now, Deb, that finishes me, and I'm happy to take questions.
And we already have 2 or 3 already on deck here. So I'm going to pull them back up. So the first question is, what about multivitamin? Okay, what about multivitamins? I've heard that they can be beneficial.
Well, thank you for that question. So there's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of prior studies that say no effect. And you can read multiple things. If you just Google vitamins health, you'll see a lot of brain health. You'll see a lot of reports saying there's no evidence. So our study, the one that I mentioned with Maria Shriver, is one that we recently completed. Deb, we can send out people the link to the actual description, the paper, if we wanted to. But we found in 2,000 people that daily multivitamin, we use Centrum Silver, did improve cognitive function for older adults. So would I say that there's no positive benefit now? Not anymore. But I have to say we still need to do that study one more time. We did not have the diversity that we need to have in that study, and we don't understand why. So we need to understand what's going on in the blood, what changes are going to help it that might explain some of these benefits.
Well, is there a chance that part of that study will take place in Winston?
Well, there is a chance.
Hi.
Actually, there is a chance. We are planning and hoping that we will be able to start the study next year in Winston-Salem, and it will, but it also involve many other cities. But Winston-Salem will be responsible for recruiting and enrolling 2,000 people from North Carolina. So I hope you'll come back and participate when we have that available.
Okay, another question. I wonder if certain medications are detrimental to mind health.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You need to go when you, every medication that you're on, please ask your doctor when you go to see your doctor, will this medication hurt my memory? There are some medications that are, it's not meant to hurt your memory, but they do their work in other parts of the body. But in doing that work, it does depress memory. So just, there are medications, just important to ask your doctor very explicitly, will this hurt my memory?
Are there any open local studies now that we could join your research?
Oh, we have so many open studies. If you were, Deb, maybe Deb, you can give us the phone number to call, but we have many centers, studies at the STIC Center, both in aging, healthy aging, but also in memory loss or memory protection. These results that I showed you today, there is no way I would even be here to be able to talk about this unless we had participants from the community joining us. So we can't make advances without your help. And when you go to the drugstore, you better hope that whatever you're looking at, whatever you're about to buy, has been through a clinical trial and that people like you have participated to help us know the answers.
Well, I can tell you the number if you just want to write this down. It'll be in the follow-up information, but it's 336-716-MIND, M-I-N-D. And I think that's 6462, but it's 336-716-MIND. Okay, another question is juicing okay?
It all depends on what's in the secret sauce. So if healthy things are in your juicing, there's more power to you.
Okay. Of lifestyle, which is more efficacious if you had to choose?
Oh, you're not even going to give me a multiple choice, huh?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm a little biased. I'm a exercise. I would have to say, it's hard to say because sleep more important than anything else. What about exercise? What about diet? It's what we expose our bodies to every single day. That's what's going to be most important. I do exercise. I do try to eat a plate of food that's colorful. My sleep is not so great, but I'm always working on it. I think if you can, of all the whole list, pick 3 and just work on, or pick 2 and put your effort there and not try to solve all the problems, but pick 2 that you think you can make some change. And that's really what matters most.
And also I would add, pick activities that you really enjoy doing, not that you feel is a drudgery, because if it is, you won't keep it up.
That's right.
So, okay. Are there any age limits for our studies?
Well, sometimes, but mostly not. Mostly not. The only time there might be is that we feel like there might be a safety risk. So we always care about your safety, number one. And if we don't think it's good for you, that won't be good for you, we're not going to let you in because that's number one. So, but most of our studies, we allow all the way, as long if you'll take us, we'll take you.
Perfect. So I think the last question is, you said move more, sit less, keep your plate colorful. What colors are good?
Well, I like dark green. I like red and anything but brown. How about that? A little bit of brown rice is good. The whole grains are good, but just all the colors of the rainbow. Get them on your plate. Perfect.
Well, this is the end of our questions, and it just works out that this is the end of our December Aging Well.
Yay.
Dr. Baker, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you most of all for being a part of us. And I can't wait to get started with all of you with 2023. So stay safe, have a wonderful, safe New Year's, and I'll see you next year.